how are you spiritually helped working on this sermon?
Yeah. I think that idea that like Jesus provides for us, but not in the way that like we expect it to be. But then realizing like that's actually good news because like all the stuff I want is actually like good, you know. That's what got me in this mess in the first place.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I appreciated just the reminder that Jesus has got. I can trust Jesus with my everyday needs, and then like look to faith in what He really wants me to do. That's a good reminder to me.
Yeah, I appreciate Christian is near the end of your sermon. You know, just contrasting what the Bible's offering us with satisfaction with, you know, it's not, I'm not saying it's easy, but there is a satisfaction. Reminder.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, for me, one of your opening questions is like, are you satisfied with your life? And what would you be seeking to get it? So one was like, oh yeah, like I do kind of have these kind of things that I think like, oh, that would make it better. And I'm like, oh, like, actually not. So it challenged me like against those and encouraged me towards Jesus. So what were some opportunities for improvement that you felt up there?
So many. I think a big one is, well, there's a couple big ones. I think a big one is like specific to the non-Christian environment, like how to do a gospel connection that like works, that fits in line, that also doesn't assume a lot of knowledge, but that also like is specific, and you're not like let me start and just running through the whole gospel, like how to do that in a way that is really precise to my argument, but that also is like the gospel, you know, in a way that people could respond to it. So I hadn't like thought that through a ton, and then like in the moment I realized like, oh, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be. So.
Was there a particular moment?
Just as I got into it,
because you like moved there with about 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
Good news comes a few chapters later.
Right. Well, so like the whole thing was like the Ephesians 2 of like salvation is a gift of God that He provides. You know, that was kind of like the anchor. I think I did it a little bit backwards. I was like, so that was part of it, is like in the delivery of it, I was like, shoot. And then I was like, I can reference Ephesians 2, but like they don't really know what that is. How do I get that?
I was thinking, I was like, wait, you said you were going to talk about Mark's story.
Right. Well, so I was going to go like Jesus died, like, okay, you know, we were dead, kind of takes our place so that we can have this free gift. You know, that was kind of like the gospel run-ish. But all of a sudden, as I'm going through it, I realized like this requires some serious like prior knowledge that I don't have. So I was like, ooh. Yeah, so I sort of like half did it and then like aborted and like, Right. So I think that was just like, oh yeah, how to do that in a way, that is specific. Because I think that Ephesians 2, like free gift kind of provision is in line with the text, but how much...
But for your audience, right?
Right, exactly, how much background.
Too.
Right.
And you also, I was thinking, this is one of the things, I'll just jump in on this. I was thinking particularly because of what you said your context was to look at this story.
Yeah.
And then to jump to Ephesians 2, you've actually just broke what you said you were actually trying to do. So does that mean like you can't move to like to Jesus from this text or not?
Right. And how do you do that? Do you just stay broadly theological, but then that's kind of like it's a little weaker, you know?
So I think you could stay like within Mark.
Sure.
Right, and do it, or you could like even move backwards. Because what is it that they don't understand at the end of this text? You said they don't understand Him as like provider, right? They failure to see Him.
Yeah.
You'd be like, well, what? Like, why is that such a problem? Like, or what does it mean that He's provider? Or be like, what is it they don't understand? They don't understand who Jesus is.
Right, and then go back to kind of Son of God.
Most recently it's that He was provider. Right, the question of identity is not only here. This is the capstone question of identity in
Yeah.
Mark, right?
I sort of like briefly referenced that, and then because as I was thinking, I was like, how do I like anchor this in a way that
I almost think you might just want to like work your way back and be like,
Yeah, that's
they've
good.
heard all of this from Jesus. So
Yeah.
you just do like a reverse one. Here it's like they don't understand that like he could provide,
yeah,
but he also does the wind and the waves. He
Yeah.
also is the one who binds Satan, right?
Yeah.
He's also the one who can forgive sins.
Yeah.
And and why can he do all those things? Well,
Yeah.
very first verse.
Yeah.
This is what they don't get.
See, and I think that'd be so good because then you're staying within Mark, and so you're like
Uh-huh.
you are staying true to like, no, I'm talking about the message of Mark, you know,
Right.
and it's like not even does this passage have a message, but like the book of Mark has this message. So that would have been really good.
And that's why he's able to offer you or to exceed your expectations.
Yeah.
Is because he exceeds every person.
So then, so I guess in that, like how, because I'm talking about this language of provider, satisfaction,
Yeah.
you know, how like specific or general do you keep that, you know, because it's like, there's so much of the gospel that, yeah, I struggle with that, you know.
So once you get to identity,
Yeah,
then you can say, I don't know how you hear about Jesus being the Son of God. And like, if this tells you that why he's able to be that one because of who he is, you know, Mark in the second act, right? I think this is almost like you're right around a break in the gospel, right here where it shifts, right?
right.
If he's pivoted to tell you who he is, the
Yeah.
rest of the book will tell you how he offers that satisfaction. This is why he can and how he does it.
And then kind of
is
run the other way to the
through his
cross.
death, bringing life.
Mm.
Something like that. I
Yeah.
mean, there's probably more than one way you could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I just realized all of a sudden, like, ooh. Yeah, this is harder than I thought with non-Christians. only.
Right. And you may not want to hit so many of those things
Right.
going
Just,
back.
you might want to quickly get to Son of God and then quickly move forward to.
Or, like, if you pick one place, like, you just jump back to chapter 2, like,
Yeah.
you're like, who can forgive sins but God
Mm.
alone, right?
Mm.
Like, if
Oh,
you
that's
go to that
good.
thing, that might
Yeah.
be one. That actually would allow you to go both ways.
Yeah.
If you're trying to be simple.
Yeah.
This question of identity, this is not the first time Jesus' question, like, the people didn't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
These people didn't understand who he was either.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
that
tricky.
was one, like,
Yeah.
I thought, like,
Ooh.
we'll talk about it in a minute. There's a lot of really good things about you engaging your
Yeah,
audience.
yeah.
And I was just like, oh, yeah.
No, I felt it. I
he
was
jumped
like,
off that
I
one.
totally lost the fact that you're all not Christians.
Right.
And it's
Ephesians.
I wish I could have just been blind to it and just gone for it because it's in the moment I realize it.
So
and
did
then
you,
I'm
like, cut part of your text on the fly, part of your sermon?
yeah, I mean, like, there's this. I'm just kind of basically just trying to get us to the end at that point. Like, how can I gospel in a way that is gospel and then get us to the end? Because like I realize like this doesn't work,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm not thinking on the fly like, oh, let's go back to Mark 2, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, no, there's a whole like around that basically just, yeah.
This
Did do.
is, I mean, in Mark, everything's who is Jesus? Who
Yeah.
is Jesus? And this is like the key point. Like, you still don't get who
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah. No, I mean, I keyed in on the identity, but I think not strongly enough because I think that would have helped me run to some of those other questions.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the provider, the nature of him as provider. Like
Yeah.
you said, only God has provided
Right.
bread. So what does that mean who he is?
Right.
And if he's this,
Yeah.
wouldn't it make sense that he could do that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Theo.
I think like the biggest thing that like, could be improved is has already kind of been said. Well, I think one like way like that helps me when I'm preaching to get like more empathy for my
Yeah.
audience is like the two practical tips that come to my mind. Like one is like I like pray for my audience before I like set up my sermon, just so I'm like aware of like what are the needs that I'm trying to hit. And then the other one is like how is this text like hitting me like, personally? And then somewhere like it's just like helpful for me to bridge the gap between like how the text hits me personally versus like how I'm praying for these people, and then I can aim my sermon a little bit more downwards towards them.
So can I did you feel like, ooh, this guy does not have empathy for me as an audience member? He doesn't really know what I'm going through or what I need. Or
I think.
I'm like, yeah, I guess
So
I'm
like
curious what this.
I was like, you were trying to hit like, we all want like satisfaction.
Yeah.
I kind of was walking away like, I don't know like how Jesus like
Yeah.
satisfies me
Yeah.
per se.
Yeah. No, it's,
But you can make it like specific to like, whatever is like, some of you are worried about your students. You're worried about like job security or something like that, and like that's the main thing that you're driving to.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if Jesus is like God,
yeah.
He can provide. for
Yeah,
you.
see, so much of that is wrapped up in the, like gospel. Those are applications I feel like you make out of the gospel connection because I was just like busted through that gospel. Yeah, so it's a huge missed opportunity because I do have all these questions. I didn't really like answer them because I'm like, oh shoot, what have I done? So yeah, that was no, that's big. That's a missed opportunity there.
That's why we're in the lab.
That's why we're in the lab.
Caleb.
This is a smallish thing.
Mm-hmm.
You quoted, I can't remember who the guy is, but about the tiny, meaningless, sad-making life.
Yeah.
I like that. I thought that was a neat way to kind of just show our need for satisfaction in Jesus.
Yeah.
I guess one of the questions I had with that, though, was the full quote included him saying, it's not that people don't... Something about them not... it's not that they're doing something wrong or...
He says it's not that they're... Shoot. Should double check on that. Everything everybody does is, I don't know, not wrong or even mean or even stupid necessarily. Just tiny, meaningless, and sad making. Yeah.
So, anyway, I guess
Yeah.
when I heard that, I was like, well, I mean, part of that is going to help you, but the other part's kind of undermines what...
Yeah, I probably should have cut some of that quote.
I don't know, it's just something to think about.
No,
'Cause for
I think
me,
that's
it's
fair.
like, well, is that...
You're saying, like, because
Ultimately, you're
it is
wrong
wrong.
to say
Yeah,
we are wrong and
Yeah.
in need of...
yeah.
Anyway, that was just one thought I had. Yeah.
No, that's fair. I was trying to kind of establish, like, this is a broadly, like, secular thought. It's not just, me telling you you're not satisfied. And trying, like, allow the space where people can admit, like, oh, shoot, yeah, I'm not. But that is a good point.
You could just say something like, this guy shares like part or reflects part of what we're thinking here, just kind of nuance it slightly, rather than quoting him as like the authority, but you can just say like, here's an author that like gets this. So my first thing was like on your content element, I guess I would just say like on your delivery, which is like kind of secondary but important, especially in this room. This room's a lot different from the other room, isn't it? You need to be bigger in here. I thought your pacing and inflection were good, but your volume dynamics were pretty flat, and your gestures were small.
Yeah.
So, like Bullmore talks about, he says any motion that you do from your wrist or elbow at the pulpit is basically unseen.
Huh.
Because it's blocked by the pulpit itself, especially angle. He says movement that you're going to do needs to be from the shoulder. Small
That's helpful.
things. So you did a few things, but it's just like that's a very concrete way to think about.
Yeah. When I'm moving my shoulders.
Yeah, because you're just down here.
Right.
And that's just like, even from me, 5 feet from you.
Yeah, you can't see
the
that.
pulpit blocks a lot of it. But if you were just like, he's here, you just raise your arms.
Yeah.
And especially if this is a hard room to preach in. It's dead, it's quiet, and it's big. Like, there's only 3 people sitting here.
Yeah.
But it's amazing with how it actually helps you, serves the words you're communicating.
No, it's helpful. That's one of the big things I've been thinking about. Pacing was something I was really working on. So
I thought your
I'm glad
pace
to
was
hear.
good. You started a little quick initially, but you settled in.
Yeah. I'm basically the way I have been pacing is like too slow and steady.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like, I just got to start quicker and start more conversationally, just kind of like, and that hopefully will help. But yeah, I think the volume and It's funny because like I do use gestures a lot, and this is what's so weird to me about preaching is like when I talk, like there is range and I do use
You're
gestures, but
more
as soon
like
as I'm
this-
up there, I'm just like
Right, in your conversations, you've been sitting
Right,
more dynamic
right,
all the way around.
right.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
So you should mark your manuscript. That's what I mean. You could think about it. That's what I do. So like, I don't know if once you had it in your text format,
Yeah.
if you're able to just mark on it or write.
yeah,
So like in areas in mine where I want to go faster, I just draw a downward arrow. Or I just move through this. If I'm going to slow down, I just put a sideways arrow. Like sit here for a sec. If I need to like be happy, like if this is a lighter moment in the sermon, no joke, I draw a smiley face in the margin, right?
Huh.
Kind of awesome, actually.
yeah.
Huh?
That's kind of awesome.
Do you do frowny faces too?
No, because that's my disposition is to be too intense and serious. So I don't need any help.
Right.
Don't need any front faces.
I'm always angry.
No, that's helpful. Yeah.
I mean, it's secondary, but it would help, and it will be more helpful in here than it was in that room.
Right.
Interesting.
Well, in that room is like hard to be dynamic because it's like you're right there.
Yeah,
you
you're
know?
in this little corner.
Right, right. No, that's good. Yeah, I think some of it's like comfort too. Like I'm not totally comfortable, you know, there or with the manuscript, and so I'm really kind of like, all right, make sure I say the right things, you
Yeah.
know. So.
Theo, you got another one?
Not really that much different. I think like it's kind of similar to that now. Like I felt like your tone kind of always had this tendency to sort of like drop a little bit, and like so there was a slow rise and then drop and then drop. So
Caleb?
This might be another preference thing on my part,
Yeah.
Christian, but the little section about Christians not reading their Bible, just the putting down of Christians. I know we've been kind of, it's been thrown out there like it can be a helpful thing, but
Yeah.
it kind of rubs me like, really? I mean,
Yeah.
because then it's like,
Interesting.
what kind of Christian are you compared to other Christians?
Oh yeah, am I like the better Christian or the?
So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. Again, I was trying to establish empathy. Like I think we both wish Christians would read their Bible more, and I was trying to include myself in that. You know, I don't think that came across, but yeah, I was trying to like, yeah, no, that's helpful though.
I like burning on Christians, but I'm probably guilty of the same thing. It can come off as condescending. Yeah. All right. Well, what was something that you were kind of pleased with, or that you tried to do, you thought came out all right?
Felt like I got better at telling the story in a way that was interesting and hopefully held attention. So kind of working on like having some of those questions, or this one I really struggled with like the transitions between, because it is kind of like that makes no sense. Like, you know, there's not like a logical way of like asking a question and then transitioning to the next sentence.
Right.
It's like, where did Jesus go? The Pharisee, like, I don't, you know, like it doesn't like make sense.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think there were a couple times where I didn't quite accomplish that like I wanted to. But I think overall, like, at least in the sections, being better at telling the story, asking the questions, and so, yeah.
All right.
I mean, I'll like reaffirm that. I think you like did do a really good job of telling the story, and I think you have like interesting ways of like phrasing things.
Huh.
Like my favorite was like, this seems like a ridiculous story, but this ridiculous story provides hope to ridiculous people. And it's like, oh, that's a cool way of thinking about it. So I like those rhetorical flourishes you did. In
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Caleb?
Yeah, Christian, I liked early on how you contrasted the world that we live in with Jesus, and you kind of did it implicitly, like when you talked about people not having compassion. That was really helpful to set Jesus against the backdrop of real life around us. And also, I think somewhere near there, you kind of set, after telling the first part of the story, said, now, you know, this could be a trite. That was good.
A lot of that honestly was coming off today. I was like, oh yeah, like this. It's a common story that like even non-Christians sound, and it is kind of like Jesus will satisfy you. It's like, really, come on, you know. So yeah,
That's good.
I don't know if that would have showed up at least as strongly if kind of what we hadn't heard today.
So I was going to say that refutation, that's one of like my biggest problems hearing those kind of stories, like
Mm.
Jesus as provider.
Mm.
Like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And how do you account for
Yeah.
all of the hungry people or
Mm.
problems? Then you kind of exegetically supported it by saying, but look, he left.
Yeah.
Right? And then you said a little bread is not ultimately satisfying. So like
Yeah.
you did a few things there that allowed you to not just like skirt the issue.
Yeah.
To say like, look, Jesus did do this, but this is like, he actually has something better than
Yeah.
just a little bit of bread. Because that doesn't ultimately
Yeah.
satisfy.
Nice story, but this is the beginning of a better story.
Right,
Yeah.
and the way you set it up, like,
Mm.
it was trite, I was like, yes, we do, I think
Mhm.
it's trite most of the time we talk about it.
Yeah.
It actually made me almost wonder if I would ever be willing to teach that
Hmm.
by itself.
Yeah, because it just is so. Well, one, I mean, the story. If you don't go to 11, like in 10, it's kind of like, and then he left them, and it's like, ooh.
Yeah.
But two, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's just really trite. Yeah.
So I thought
Mm.
that was really well done. Like,
Mm.
I was ready to like, yeah, just turn you off. So,
That's good. That's good.
Theo?
I think you do a good job preaching apologetically,
Hmm.
in like the classroom setting, of,
Hmm.
like, you know, you raised like these are some potential objections that some people might have, or some way that they've heard the story,
Hmm.
and then you were like, but what if like Mark meant to do this?
Right.
Or what if what would this show us, or
Mm.
something like that. And yeah, I thought that was a cool way of like, instead of like trying to hit an objection head on, just
Yeah.
being like, well, let's look at it from another angle,
Yeah.
and then see where that takes us, kind of thing.
Dude, that's the postmodern stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Another positive thing I had in here was your section in explaining about. I was satisfied. Oh, no pun intended. By
Like
the
Caleb.
your explanation of what Jesus meant with being aware of the
Mm.
11, and
Yeah, that too. I was like,
I thought you brought that out
Okay.
actually in a helpful way by just
Mm.
saying, "Hey, look, it's what we just talked about with
Yeah.
their attitude of."
You're like, if only we knew what this was.
I wasn't sure if that was gonna land or not. You know, like that kind of like, okay, that's good. Hmm.
I thought all the way up until your gospel
Hmm.
presentation, where
Mm.
like you moved to like try to go to the end of the book,
Mm-hmm.
but the rest of the time you were really using language, vocabulary that was appropriate for a
Mm.
non-Christian. You said it like, so your disposition was perfect towards it, and
Mm.
you even used like your opening thing, like, oh boy, all right, we're gonna get like this kind of Christian, like an
Mm.
unusual story. Oh, we just had Bible reading, it's getting serious.
Yeah.
But all stories about satisfaction start with peanut butter.
Mm,
And I was
yeah.
just like, oh, all right, that's great.
Yeah.
So I just thought like, man, that was a great like tone setter
Mm.
that actually played out. It's really goofy, right?
Mhm.
But it's just like, unless you're allergic to it.
Yeah.
But even then, you probably still can at least get like the image. But
Yeah.
as it reflected like this broader way of like, you're really good
Yeah.
at speaking casually,
Mm, mhm.
not like proclamatory
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
non-Christians or to non-Christians.
That's helpful.
And so maybe
That's
like,
helpful.
I don't know, like I haven't heard you preach before.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of why your volume was just down, to
Mm.
not be preachy.
Mm.
Like, yeah.
That's helpful.
So
I have a question actually. Do you think I fulfilled on my premise? Because that's a big thing I was wondering about. Is the story has one kind of point,
which is what?
which is God provides. The satisfaction God provides doesn't meet our expectations, but it does exceed them. So that's kind of like the main point of the story. But that's not really why I was invited to talk. I was invited to talk about a Christian's perspective on the Bible as literature. Do you think I fulfilled on that? Like, do you think the person who invited me to the class would have been like, oh, you kind of used that to just preach a sermon at us?
Well, you did a couple, you kept saying that you had two things that you were trying to do. You were doing that, which was to say that satisfaction,
Yeah.
but also you were trying to say that because this story has a point, the Bible has a point. And you said that a couple times, that you were just trying to say, like, I was like, I don't know that would prove that this has a point.
Yeah. I was kind of trying to prove, like, I was trying to argue that that is the point, to demonstrate that actually maybe the Bible does have, yeah.
There were a couple of times where I was like, I wish he was doing more of like it could have just been a generic kind of intellectual, non-Christian audience, not so much a Bible as lit class.
Right.
And it was somewhere like in your second point where like you said something and I was like, oh, like, okay, like I see a little bit of like,
Right.
but it wasn't a whole lot like literary stuff, which I would have expected to see. You said something about we go into this next act, and I was like, okay, there's one, and there was something else that you said too, and I forget what it was, but yeah, to just give a Christian's perspective.
Yeah.
If you're giving a Christian's perspective on this passage,
Right.
you did that.
Right. See, yeah, I figured that was the case. I couldn't, yeah.
But I also think you were kind of unclear as to what you were arguing. It's not just that he meets the expectations, but actually because of who he is, right? Because you also did have that identity thing weave a few times in there.
That's fair.
So I was like, and that happens a lot, right? We talk about that all the time in this. It's like, well, you argued to something, but it wasn't what you thought you were arguing to. And so, like, especially like when you were at the end here, like the failure to see Jesus as provider. Only God is the one who has provided bread.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
this whole thing about like putting God in a box,
Yeah.
right? Or like having our paradigms kind of thing. It's all about like how are we perceiving God? So like that's kind of close to like a Christian perspective. But again, I think all you had to say was like a Christian perspective, how a Christian would read this passage.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Cool.
All right, there you go.